The 2024 vice presidential nominees facing off on the debate stage last night, hitting on many of the key issues that will affect your wallet, pocketbook, purse, drawer, wherever you're putting money at. We've got team coverage breaking down some of the highlights. Joining me now is our housing reporter, Dani Romero, and Washington correspondent, Ben Werschkul. Great to have you both here with us. Dani, let's start with you. The candidates, they disagreed about what's to blame for the housing crisis. Let's listen in.
You have got housing that is totally unaffordable because we brought in millions of illegal immigrants to compete with Americans for scarce homes. We have a lot of Americans that need homes. We should be kicking out illegal immigrants who are competing for those homes, and we should be building more homes for the American citizens who deserve to be here.
But we can't blame immigrants for the only reason. That's not the case that's happening in many cities. The fact of the matter is that we don't have enough naturally affordable housing, but we can make sure that the government's there to help kickstart it, create that base.
Now, Dani, you've been listening in and you've got the facts on what we just heard. What are the facts?
Brad, let's fact check these claims. Economists tell me that immigration, including illegal immigration, has contributed to the population growing and also demand for housing, but it is not the primary driver of why we have a housing affordability crisis. This all goes back to the lack of supply and the shortage of homes, which has caused the ripple effects in the housing market. Remember, historically, the vice presidential debate really is not meant to, not designed to cause harm, really. It's actually perhaps more to reinforce what the running mate is going to do to back up the president. That's why we heard from Governor Tim Walz really lay out Harris's plan to tackle a housing affordability, Brad.
And the debate over health care also got heated last night. Here's what Republican vice presidential candidate J.D. Vance had to say.
But when Obamacare was crushing under the weight of its own regulatory burden and health care costs, Donald Trump could have destroyed the program. Instead, he worked in a bipartisan way to ensure that Americans had access to affordable care.
And so, Ben, this is becoming a top-tier issue, essentially, for the final campaign stretch here. What do you make of it?
For sure. Yeah, Dani just mentioned the fact checks on housing. This is another issue that fact checkers are really honing in on this morning. Needless to say, hearing from a Republican about efforts to preserve Obamacare is a pretty surprising one. And that tells me about the kind of shifting politics of this. And there's a lot of financial implications there. You know, Republicans spent the last 14 years trying to repeal Obamacare completely. And now we see sort of this effort to kind of blur the lines between Democrats and Republicans on Obamacare and on the popular parts of it, specifically issues like pre-existing conditions. And what that points to, I think, financially, is that there could be areas of bipartisan agreement in 2025, at least less overt efforts from Republicans, depending if they win to repeal it, but also areas under the surface like prescription drugs and lowering the cost of those that Vance has also talked about blurring the lines on that could come up in conversations next year amongst taxes and amongst a bunch of different issues.
Dani Romero and Ben Werschkul, thanks so much for tuning into the debate and then breaking down some of the key stats that need to be known by voters everywhere and how this could impact the economy. Thank you both.
We watched, so you don't have to.
Look, yes, you absolutely did, even though I did tune in for a little bit. Thanks so much, Ben. Appreciate it. And Dani.